Welcome back to the Noir archive. Today, we open a secret archive from the remnants after World War II. This is the story of a dark chapter in history, dark history, named the ODESSA Network. Imagine we are standing in the middle of Berlin in May 1945. The city is no longer a proud capital but has become a massive open-air grave. The atmosphere is thick with the smell of gunpowder, the scent of half-burnt bricks, and the coldness of death. Soviet T-34 tanks roar through the ruined boulevards, crushing the last swastika symbols under their iron tracks. The Third Reich is taking its final breath in dust and humiliation. However, while the world is focused on the trials in Nuremberg, where Nazi leaders are being brought to the gallows before the light of justice, a terrifying silence is enveloping the deep underground bunkers. A major question is raised: where did thousands of high-ranking SS officers, those who directly operated the genocidal machines, go? They did not remain on the battlefield, nor did they appear in Allied prison camps. They seemed to have evaporated, vanished like ghosts amidst the German winter. The answer does not lie in public reports, but is hidden in an oath in the shadows called ODESSA. Do not mistake this for just an ordinary relief organization. ODESSA was a massive underground logistics network, a structure operated by Nazi gold and filthy political connections. This was a continental secret operation designed to ensure that the most loathsome criminals in history could escape punishment. How could those most fiercely hunted by the world disappear into thin air? Who opened the door for the devils to pass through, and what truth awaits us behind the recently declassified files? The truth is always darker than you can imagine. Let us follow the bloody footprints on the Ratlines to decode the ODESSA network and the way the SS ghosts have evaded justice for decades. When the first shots of the Allies rang out on the coast of Normandy in the summer of 1944, the whole world believed the end of Nazism was near. But while young German soldiers were being roasted in burning trenches, in a discreet location in Strasbourg, France, an entirely different script was being written. On August 13, 1944, at the Maison Rouge Hotel, a secret conference took place that history would later call the beginning of the Fourth Reich in the shadows. The attendees were not generals covered in battlefield mud, but the leading industrial tycoons of Nazi Germany, representatives of Krupp, Messerschmitt, Volkswagen, and especially the cunning brains of the SS forces. In that smoke-filled room, they did not discuss how to overturn the military situation, for they were smart enough to understand that Berlin would fall. Instead, they discussed the survival of capital and Nazi power after the defeat. The Maison Rouge conference was the place where the first brick of the ODESSA network was laid, with a massive asset dispersal plan that humanity had never witnessed. The financial resources to operate this escape machine were nothing other than the massive gold of the Reich Bank, kilograms of diamonds confiscated from Jewish victims, and more importantly, thousands of technical patents, top-secret military secrets encrypted to be dispersed to Swiss banks and front companies in Sweden or Spain. This was not just money, it was the seed for Nazism to sprout again elsewhere when the storm of war passed. Standing behind this sophisticated operation was a haunting figure, Otto Skorzeny. Dubbed the most dangerous man in Europe, Skorzeny was not only a famous commando with a long scar on his face but also a brilliant architect of underground networks. He understood that to save the SS ghosts, one did not need guns and bullets, but forged passports, filthy diplomatic corridors, and untraceable money flows. The rise of ODESSA during this period reflected an extreme psychological state, a combination of fanatical loyalty to Nazism and the cold survival instinct of those with nothing left to lose. Why did they not surrender? Because for individuals like Skorzeny or SS officials, surrender meant the gallows. They chose to disappear, chose to build a fraternal relief network to protect each other, turning mass murderers into honest citizens under new identities. We are talking about billions of dollars in today's value that disappeared from Germany's treasury to flow into the lifeblood of ODESSA, creating the premise for the Ratlines across the Majestic Alps. A terrible betrayal right in the heart of the war, where those in power prepared a luxurious escape for themselves while millions of others were dying for a blind ideal. That was the true face of ODESSA's origins, an organization born from fear, blood gold, and the most dramatic declassified conspiracies of the 20th century. Imagine a map of Europe in 1945, where red lines like leaking blood vessels begin to spread from the ruins of Nazi Germany, across the majestic Alps, converging toward the south, toward Rome, the Eternal City, which suddenly became the largest transit station for the devils. The term the Ratlines is not an exaggeration, it accurately describes the way those who once called themselves the master race now had to scurry in the darkness, crawling through the loopholes of law and compassion to find a way to live. The heart of this network, ironically, lay behind the ancient walls of the Vatican. We are talking about one of the largest stains in religious history, the Vatican connection. The central figure here was Bishop Alois Hudel, an Austrian with extreme pro-Nazi views, who believed that saving SS soldiers was a religious duty to counter the communist wave spreading from the east. Hudel did not operate alone, he turned the Santa Maria dell'Anima monastery into a safe stopover, where butchers fresh from concentration camps could find a warm bed, a hot meal, and most importantly, a new identity. The process was incredibly sophisticated, with the unintentional or intentional support of the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. Thousands of refugee passports were issued based on forged statements that Bishop Hudel endorsed. With just a stroke of a pen, an SS officer with blood-stained hands now became a stateless refugee, a poor victim of war seeking a way to South America to restart his life. Observe the journey of a typical criminal. He sheds his proud gray-black uniform with the death's head insignia, shaves his distinctive beard, replacing it with worn civilian clothes and the gaunt face of the defeated. He walks on the precarious trails of the Alps, avoiding the Allied checkpoints, sleeping in cold caves or the barns of remote estates belonging to the ODESSA network. Every step is a calculation, every stop a psychological challenge. To identify comrades in the darkness without revealing their identity, ODESSA developed extremely sophisticated masking techniques. It could be a banknote torn in half with matching serial numbers, or a line of poetry from German classics read halfway, waiting for the person opposite to continue it. These signs functioned as a silent language, connecting fugitives with sleeper agents posing as monks, farmers, or port workers. Not only was there the Rome route, the Ratlines also extended their reach to northern Europe and Spain. Those who could not go south would choose to cross through Denmark to reach Sweden, or hide on transport ships departing from the ports of the Franco dictatorship in Spain, where loyalty to Nazism was still fervently preserved. At seaports like Genoa or Cadiz, the tension reached its peak. The criminals stood in line with thousands of real refugees, their hearts beating fast under tattered coats when facing guards. But with forged Vatican passports and the backing of ODESSA, they boarded ships, heading toward the horizon of the Atlantic Ocean. They carried with them not only their escape but also terrifying secrets and blood gold money flows to rebuild a future in the shadows. The Ratlines were not just a geographical route, they were a testament to the corruption of international organizations and the cunning of an empire that refused to perish. As the ships weighed anchor and left the ports, history officially recorded one of the largest and most filthy escapes, where justice was left behind on the misty docks of Europe, making way for the darkness of South America waiting ahead. When the ships filled with the ghosts of the past docked in Buenos Aires, a new chapter of crime and cover-up began. Why did Argentina, a country located tens of thousands of miles away from the European battlefield, become the ideal destination for Nazi butchers? The answer lies in a powerful name, Juan Perón. Under the Perón administration, Argentina not only opened its borders but also actively established a sophisticated reception system for the fugitives. This was not a misguided humanitarian act, but a calculated secret agreement involving technology, military, and finance. Perón believed that Nazi intellects, from rocket engineers to nuclear experts and the organizational brains of the SS, would be the leverage to turn Argentina into a South American superpower. In exchange for protection, SS officers brought a dowry of top-secret technological secrets and massive flows of money from the treasury of the Third Reich. Look at the paradoxical new lives of these men under false identities. Adolf Eichmann, dubbed the architect of the final solution, who coordinated death trains sending millions to gas chambers, suddenly became Ricardo Clement, a quiet, diligent worker at the Mercedes-Benz factory on the outskirts of Buenos Aires. He lived in a modest house on Garibaldi Street, went to work daily by bus, raised rabbits, and had dinner with his family like an exemplary citizen. The banality of evil appeared more clearly than ever when a serial killer could nonchalantly blend into the crowd without anyone suspecting. Meanwhile, Joseph Mengele, the angel of death at Auschwitz, who performed insane medical experiments on children's bodies, chose a more secretive, reclusive path. Mengele moved constantly through remote farms in Brazil and Paraguay under the protection of pro-German landowners. He lived in fear of being hunted but still received regular stipends from his family in Germany through the ODESSA network. Here, the ODESSA network was no longer just rudimentary codes, but had evolved into a multi-layered security system with front organizations and closed settlements. The most typical was Colonia Dignidad, an isolated fortress where Nazi rules were still strictly enforced, serving as a supply station and absolute sanctuary for fugitives. So where did the Nazi blood money go? The truth about Nazi gold in South America does not just lie in treasure chests underground, it melted and seeped deep into the regional economy. These money flows poured into massive real estate projects, bought up industrial corporations, and established trust funds in Uruguay or Panama. ODESSA turned blood gold into economic power, allowing former SS officers not only to exist but also to manipulate politics from the shadows. Their presence in South America created a borderless Fourth Reich, where justice was obscured by national interests and the betrayal of politicians. The lives of these demons in Argentina and Brazil during the 2 decades following the war are a painful reminder that, when darkness has enough money and cover, it can nonchalantly exist right in the middle of daylight. We are talking about a network so vast that even when the Mossad began to act, thousands of individuals managed to dive deep into the Amazon jungle or luxury villas, carrying secrets that the world may never fully decode. For 15 years since the end of World War II gunfire, the ODESSA network operated as an invulnerable entity under the shadow of fugitives. However, on an afternoon in May 1960 in Buenos Aires, that curtain of fog was torn apart. Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, executed one of the boldest operations in history, capturing Adolf Eichmann right on Garibaldi Street. When the architect of genocide was thrust onto a plane to be taken to Jerusalem for trial, the whole world realized with shock that the SS ghosts had not disappeared, they were living right in the heart of civilized society. The operation to capture Eichmann was a rare light shining into the darkness of ODESSA, but ironically, it also accidentally revealed a harsher reality: thousands of others were still being protected by a power network even larger than ODESSA. That was the calculated silence of governments during the Cold War. As the world split into 2 poles, those who were once war criminals suddenly became valuable assets. Declassified files from the CIA and Western intelligence agencies later showed a chilling truth: to counter the communist wave, they were willing to shake hands with the devil. SS officers who once served in Nazi intelligence units, those with experience in torture and information gathering, were recruited under new aliases. Justice was set aside to make room for short-term political goals. While Mossad was preoccupied with hunting Mengele or Klaus Barbie, elsewhere, former ODESSA members were holding positions as military advisors or running front companies for Western intelligence. So ultimately, did ODESSA truly dissolve? The answer is probably no. In the style of a true noir documentary, we must understand that ODESSA did not disappear like the collapse of a building, it simply melted. It melted into the global financial system, into anonymous trust funds in tax havens, and into the relationships of transnational oligarchic families. The blood gold coins from the Maison Rouge era were washed clean over decades, becoming investment capital for multinational corporations and development projects in South America. Its dark legacy no longer lies in forged passports, but in silent economic manipulation. As we close this file, a lingering sense of unease remains. History is not a straight line toward justice, but sometimes a loop of betrayal and cover ups. Many on the ODESSA blacklist died of old age in peace in luxury villas, taking horrific secrets to their graves without ever having to face a single trial. The final message the Noir archive wants to send you is, history never truly disappears, it only hides under the dust of time, waiting for a day to be declassified to remind us of the price of forgetting. The world may have changed, but the ghosts of the past still always lurk somewhere in files labeled top secret. Justice may have been denied to millions of victims, but the truth can never be buried forever.